Greetings and God bless. Welcome to another episode of Pastor Mike, dynamic voices for a diverse church powered by The Witness, a Black Christian collective. I'm your host, G. Tyler Burns. You can follow me on Instagram at G. Tyler Burns. Please follow at your own risk. I'm getting on TikTok now too.
Are you ready?
I'm doing a little dabbling. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Let me keep going. I am joined as always by the founder of The Witness. He has a very extensive bio. He is the man, the myth, the legend, the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-time best-selling author, Mr. Blue Check Verified himself. Follow his writings at jemartisby.substack.com. Dr. Jemar Tisby, what's going on, bro?
What's good? What's good, man? We in a new spot right here.
Yeah, I'm dabbling in TikTok, bro.
Okay. Wow.
I'm just dropping a few clips, man.
All right.
Just
You
see what's
feeling
going
older
on.
and you want to kind of remind yourself you still got some life in you?
Yeah, it's
TikTok
definitely like,
kids.
it's definitely like one of them hardwood basketball runs, not the ones in like the Planet Fitness or the local YMCA. I'm talking about like those hardwood runs outside the playground
Yeah,
runs.
like you used to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't do it anymore, but I'm still just experimenting. I'm a spot up shooter now, man.
Hey, that's where you got to go where the people are. I get it.
Speaking of going where the people are, bro, I gave up Target.
You and me both.
Look, man, can we talk about this?
Yes.
Bro, I gave up Target. I have not shopped at Target this entire year. And whenever you're listening to this, it doesn't matter how many months, I still will have not. I don't think I'm going back.
It's wild because we used that. Yeah, it used to be the spot for Black folks. Target, as we would call it. Yeah.
Yeah, but especially now, it's put me in this very interesting reality because, like, if you're wanting to get quick beard products, right? Like if you need products for your beard, if you need products for, different things, like they're just little grooming, hygienic things. And you're like, Target was your place.
Of course.
Because they would have more convenient stuff than other stores would.
It felt upscale, a little bit more upscale than Walmart, right?
For sure.
You felt like, okay, I'm middle class Black. All right. We done made it. And so Target is our spot.
You got to keep the cart light because your prices you can't go above 5 items.
It
got to have a plan.
It never worked out that way. It never worked out that way.
You got to have a plan.
Whatever your plan was walking into Target, it got burned up by the time you walked out.
And another part of that is we also saw a lot of our favorite Black artists and even some of our friends like Danny Koch Balfour, others that were featured in Target. And so we would
They were putting some of our Black creators on.
Yeah, so that we would go in there and buy their stuff. Yeah. We would go in there and patronize their products. We go in there and get the special oils. Bevel, very prominently, was there. Yes. Massive.
Yes.
And blew up based upon a Target placement. And now we done with them, bro. Well, what made you stop?
There was a sense of we got to do something. Because we saw all these corporations walking back their DEI commitments, walking back their promises to the Black community after 2020. And that's what's particular about Target. Lest we forget, their headquarters is in Minneapolis.
Yes.
And so George Floyd is killed in Minneapolis. So you have the largest uprising for racial justice in 2020. The epicenter is Minneapolis, where Target has its headquarters. So they made all of these promises to the Black community to increase the number of Black people in their workforce, to make these investments into
billions
Black
of dollars of
and businesses.
They promised billions of dollars of investments.
And just like that, it's gone.
So a lot of people
Target put a target on themselves.
I knew this was coming. This is why I tried to move on, because I had a feeling this was coming. Like something in me, I sensed it. But a lot of people have said, well, I mean, there's so many other stores. There's something particular about Target for cultural identification, but it starts somewhere.
Yeah.
I think it's not going to stay there, but it starts somewhere.
For sure.
I don't want to it's always dangerous to give full credit and attribution to one person for any movement, because that's never the case. It's never going to be the case. But I think if there was one person who's been the public face of the Target boycott, it's definitely been Dr. Jamal Harrison Bryant at New Birth Cathedral in Atlanta.
Absolutely.
1,000%.
Absolutely.
And so he mobilized people to do a Target fast. He tied it together with Lent, and he motivated people to do 40 days, no Target. And I'm curious how many people have actually stayed true to it.
Well, what's interesting, have you seen online these videos?
Yep.
Of, I think it's a Black woman who's confronting other Black people gently. You're not supposed to be shopping.
You're not supposed to be there, baby. No, what you doing?
And some people are like, oh, and they're ashamed, like I got caught, or like you right. Some of them actually turn around and leave. Others are like, well, charge it to the game.
Well, and I think part of it is you naturally just go to certain places. It's part of your routine.
Habit,
it's part of your, you're discipled or indoctrinated into the same rhythm, the same routine, the same familiar store clerks, cashiers. And now we're getting to a place where the way in which things are going in our country, the way in which our local communities have shifted and changed, we have to move differently. We cannot move the same. And I think over these series of episodes that we're doing, we're talking about what does it look like to move differently in a world that has forced us to, in a world that, yes, based upon what is right and wrong, we should 100% not be shopping at certain stores. We should be challenging certain establishments. We should be thinking about our dollar, collective economics. Like we should be thinking about all of that. But I think now we're forced to draw some sort of line and to say, if we don't, we won't survive, because we're essentially ceding over all our ground of equity and diversity and inclusion and any of those synonymous words. We're ceding over what is ground for not just ourselves, but future generations if we don't do something right now.
Yeah, the Target boycott is a prime example of Black folk moving differently in this moment. So there were these protests in April, the Hands Off movement, right? Mm-hmm. Millions of people around the country, not a lot of Black folks. And these are protests and marches out in public.
Yeah, you know what's wild? I didn't even hear about it. I didn't even hear about it until I saw pictures at our local, kind of the spot where a lot of people were protest. And I saw pictures there and I was like, what is that?
Exactly.
And then it was like, oh, it's a hands off march rally thing. And I was like, what does that mean? I had no clue, bro.
It's indicative, the press coverage is not as broad as it probably needed to be about these protests, because national news media is very beholden to the money, all of that stuff. But also because Black folks are moving differently. We're like, okay, we were out in 2020.
Yeah.
We were out in 2015, 2016, 2017.
We were out, dog.
In Black Lives Matter. We were out in the 1960s.
Yeah.
We have put our literal bodies on the line for justice. And y'all still, in November 2024, voted this man back in, despite the insurrection that he fomented, despite the lies that we lost count of. Because every time he speaks, there's some lie spewing forth, despite his racism, misogyny, despite all of that, despite the 92% of Black women voting for the other candidate, y'all wanted this man who is now implementing fascism, right? Yeah. And so it's not just throw our hands up, we out. It's let's be strategic.
Yeah.
Let's move differently, because the way we've been moving, namely marching in the streets, the message is not getting through the same way we want it to. So let's march with our dollars and boycott places like Target.
So interestingly, if you want to find out more about this, it's at targetfast.org. And the only reason I mention it is because it's a great place to see kind of how people are establishing movement and establishing the foundation of movement. So according to them, their numbers, they say 150,000 people signed up to participate in the Target fast, the Target boycott. And what's interesting is that it had a significant effect, if not necessarily the boycott itself, as much as the negative press around Target kind of kept people away or made them think twice.
Absolutely.
And so as a result, here are a few stats that they list here. So according to them, they say Target's valuation fell by $2 billion. Their stock dropped by 57%. They've lost over $4 billion since January 2024. Foot traffic and online engagement are steadily declining. They say here, and I quote, "This didn't happen by chance. This wasn't a trending moment. This was people power, strategic, sacred, unstoppable."
And I would add sustained.
Yeah.
Right. So that's
very
been
much
the difference. Is like you said, you haven't been to Target all year at this point.
And what's so funny is now I'm looking back on it and I'm saying, do I really miss it? Or did it force me to become a lot more creative about how I even patronize businesses. So this includes not just, okay, we're talking about Target, which I think is low hanging fruit, but it made me think about what are Black owned businesses that I could actually patronize. And to their credit, Target Fast had a list, a directory of hundreds of Black owned businesses that you could go to for specific items and for specific things. And so it equipped people. It gave them an alternative, not just simply we're staying away from this store. But then I had to think, okay, am I going to go to Amazon and just, type in stuff? Or am I going to go directly to a Black owned corporation,
100%.
directly to a Black owned small business for hygienic care or grooming or vitamins or whatever it is? Am I going to go directly to the source? So it made me think about all the layers and levels of, if I'm doing this with Target, I need to be consistent about everything. And so how do I now rethink consumption in a fascist society? You know?
I mean, justice requires that you sacrifice some convenience for integrity. And it has forced us to get more creative. I just think back to the Montgomery bus boycott. Again, a sustained movement, a targeted movement. It was the bus system, right? There were a lot of other city services that were doing the same messed up stuff in terms of racism. It so happened, because of Rosa Parks' stand by sitting, that the focus was the bus system. But this happened for over a year. They boycotted buses, and it's a lot more difficult and inconvenient to forego public transportation that you rely on to get to your job than it is to go to shopping at a particular store, right? So they really, and to your point about getting more creative, they had carpools, they had their own informal taxi systems, they walked. And so they figured it out, but it wasn't easy. But the result was the racial segregation on public transportation came tumbling down because of that boycott. And that's the way we need to be thinking and moving right now in terms of strategy.
And what I love about that is that, when you talk about the carpools, the taxi system, so much of that was organized and set up within the context of the church, of the local church.
Yes.
So local Black churches had to get creative, not just simply about what they said, but about mobilizing people towards action and activism.
Yes.
Which I think is a big part of what you've been talking about.
That's what I'm
in your content, right? What you've been talking about.
Point to pastors like Tyler Burns, who you're thinking this way, but we can think of other examples, right? So there's the Target boycott, which, as you said, not the sole person, but kind of the face of it, Pastor Jamal Bryant, church-based, all that stuff. It was part of Lent, part of fasting. It was a spiritual protest as well as an economic one. We can look at other ones like churches signing on to support the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture, because there's this executive order targeting Smithsonian institutions, including the Blacksonian, as it's affectionately called. And so what do churches do? They say, you know what, we're going to donate money to our quote unquote museum and support our history and make sure that folks know we're not going to take this sitting down, but we're moving differently, right? We're not showing up in front of the White House to protest in the streets. Why? Our very presence invites state violence. I want people to ponder that.
Wow.
Our presence invites state violence. You can see the pictures from the Black Lives Matter movement, mid-2010s, when we were out in the streets protesting that our lives matter and against anti-Black police brutality. What happened? They came out with military force, literally tanks, riot gear, tear gas, all of that, right? When you look at January 6th, just imagine, instead of a mob of white people, it's a group of Black people. How would the response? Everybody knows. Everybody, no matter how colorblind you claim you are, you know the response would have been differently. So our presence invites state violence. And in the midst of the determined, resolute support of this president by white people, we said, nah. White folks, if you're going to protest, you need to be out in the streets.
You got it.
Because the response to you all is going to be vastly different than us. And when they see you all in the streets, that signals something different. When they see us, we're shopping at our Black-owned businesses.
Yeah. Another group I would love before we go to break to point out is Dr. Charlie Dates
Yes.
in Chicago, because he had the Spend in the Black campaign on Easter weekend. So he actually mobilized both of his churches, Salem and Progressive, and broader faith communities in Chicago to go and literally spend money at specific Black-owned establishments,
That's
businesses,
what I'm talking about.
redirecting that economic power and wealth. So there's so much more to say. Let's take a break, and then we're going to come back and talk about some more strategies and also maybe some shifts that we're making in our own lives. We'll be right back here on Pastor Mike. Well, greetings and God bless, family. This is your host of Pastor Mike, Tyler Burns, and I am so excited that we're still doing Pastor Mike 11 years after we started. Think about this. 11 years after we started, we're still doing this. And the reason why we can do it is because people like you have supported us from the beginning. We would not still be here if not for the support of people who are our patrons. And if you go to patreon.com/Pastor Mike, if this podcast has helped you in any way, shape, or form, if we've encouraged you to think more deeply about race and justice, if we've inspired you to make change right where you are, if we've been an oasis in the desert in the midst of toxic church spaces, we need your help. We need your support. For just a few dollars every single month, you can keep us going. You literally, as our listeners, keep us going. So head to patreon.com/Pastor Mike. We're passing the mic to you for your support so that we can continue doing this podcast that so many people love. Thank you so much for your support. If you are already a patron, and if you're not, just a few dollars a month. Thank you so much. So we're back talking about this whole concept of what it means to move differently, specifically with our money, move differently with our economics, move differently in what we buy, where we spend our dollar, what we invest in. And so I had this really interesting conversation because our kids love Target. You know, we have two kids and they love Target, yo. They love Target. They love walking in. I think it's the aesthetics. I think it's because they know they can get certain toys there.
Of course.
I think it's, you know, all kinds of different things. They have their favorite snacks that they do. And so we had this really interesting conversation with our oldest about not going to Target, because she was like, "Are we going to go to Target?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "Why not?" And so it was a really interesting conversation to see her process what she would do. We posited this scenario. I don't remember the exact words I used, but what she would do if someone mistreated her. Would she still be friends with that person? Or would she still associate with that person? Would she still hang around that person if someone mistreated her? And she was like, "No, it's like so-and-so." I won't mention the name, of course, but it's, "Oh no, like so-and-so did that to me. She's not my friend anymore." Right? You know, it's like, yeah, you gave her a chance and you told her, and now I was like, well, that's like Target with us, you know?
Yeah, that's good.
And she's
That's
like, "Oh,
good.
okay." You know, I don't know if she fully understood it, right? Yeah. But at the same time, it was like, I was trying to make some sort of connection to her that says, we're doing this on purpose so that they will treat us as we should be treated.
I love that you brought that up, because it is a question I get often. How do we teach our children about justice? And you're doing it. And it's so much more effective when you're actually doing justice. And along the way, you unpack it and explain it for children. And you figure it out as you go, like saying this analogy of if a friend mistreated you, right? So that puts it in a context that a child can understand. But more than whatever words you say, more than whatever analogy you use to explain it, they see you not going to Target. Yeah. So these practices actually have a generational impact, right? When people ask, this phrase, what radicalized you?
Yeah.
I grew up with this.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be powerful if our children could say that? It's like, what radicalized you? Well, I can't think of a specific moment because I grew up with this. My parents participated in the Target boycott. They were always talking to us about solidarity, about equality, about equity. And it was just in the air in my family.
Yeah.
And that's what it should be. It shouldn't be like, oh, this one moment when I was a teenager, sure, something can make things click and make sense in a different way for you.
Sure.
But it shouldn't be brand new.
I think that part of what it looks like for us to mobilize as churches, faith leaders, groups, is that we actually need to think about these moments and movements as spiritual practice.
100%.
And not just simply, okay, it's a spiritual act, but we actually need to think about this as part of spiritual formation.
100%. Yes.
And when you think about it in terms of spiritual formation, so much of our idea of spiritual disciplines is confined to individual, personalized, private piety. And so what we're doing is we're saying, okay, based upon my silence and my solitude, based upon my fasting, based upon my prayer, based upon my scripture reading, based upon my confession, based upon my repentance, based upon my praise and my worship, based upon my
we don't
personal
have to go
feelings.
all the way there, but this is very white Western European
1000%
Christianity spiritual practice. Yes.
And so now we couch everything that we do in the context of, based upon me and God, me and God, me and God. And God is like, wait a second. So when does this reach your neighbor and your community? And when does it reach the actions of what it means to love your neighbor well and to love your community well and to represent what would Jesus do if he were you in your particular situation?
I mean, you're bringing up so much because I get all these messages, particularly from white people who A, are new to this, and B, have this very individualistic form of discipleship. And the messages I get are burnout. Yeah, I've lost hope. What can we do? All of these messages, which I get, right? It's discouraging. The problems are big. That's not to deny the natural human emotions that should come about when you see injustice on such a wide scale. But also, like, really, like, no hope? How do you have hope kind of a thing? Part of it is, we don't have a communal practice of justice. And because of that, we feel like we are bearing all of the load of injustice individually. And guess what? That's crushing. Because it's not supposed to be just you against the world. It's supposed to be the church against the injustice of the world. The people of God against the injustice of the world. And so if we lose justice as a communal practice of solidarity, then your cross becomes the burden that breaks you rather than having people who can come alongside you, help bear that burden.
Come on, bro.
Which, by the way, we've seen the stats. Decline in church attendance, decline in people affiliating with a specific church or denomination. But I think the Target boycott, the way that it is a spiritually infused practice, if we really think about it, actually reinserts the Black church as central. In our lives as people in this nation and as relational beings, right? What I'm trying to say is we thought the Black church, some people thought the Black church was irrelevant. When the chips are down, when you cannot count on other institutions or other entities, guess where we're going back to? The Black church.
And I think what people don't understand is if you give, no pun intended, people a target.
Here it is. See, I had mine. You got yours.
Hey, man, I had to get in there at some point. But if you give people a target to hit, they will be more engaged, mobilized, involved in local church. I think people don't realize that. I think they get this mentality that everyone is holding these deep philosophical, intellectual objections to the church and have no desire to do anything or have any relationship with God based upon those philosophical objections or intellectual objections. And I'm here to tell you, yes, those matter. And yes, we should engage them. And yes, we should interact with them. The vast majority of people are like, can my life be a part of something that has purpose? And they just want to know that not only is my private relationship with God, but what if we do something together? And the things that actually work aren't the things that we give people in terms of tools that they go and use privately, but the things that actually work, I've seen in church, are the things that we do together.
Ooh, say that.
When you mobilize people to do things in community together, and not just a small group, but when you mobilize them to take action together, I've seen that attendance, involvement, excitement, morale, momentum skyrockets. Because people are like, just give me a handle, just give me levers, just give me something. Because they're like, I don't know if and I don't even know if I've really gotten really down to the bottom of the fullness of it yet as a pastor. But I am noticing that when we give people a mountain to conquer and we say, let's do it together, And let's explore what could be on the other end of this. We get to the peak of this. We support one another. What happens? And then you look around and you're like, whoa, I did not think that was going to happen. Yeah. I did not expect that.
Yeah.
And so your power is multiplied when you're together. Now you see it. You know what I'm saying?
I love that you said that. It's so true. Give the people a mission and they will mobilize behind it. And I shouldn't bring this up because we can't really unpack it, but I just want to plant a seed for folks. Speaking of moving differently, I see a difference between how we as Black communities are moving differently from the mid 2010s and the height of the Black Lives Matter movement to now. There was almost an explicit non-church centric, non-religious feel to Black Lives Matter publicly. If we pointed to faces as leaders of BLM 10 years ago, they wouldn't necessarily be pastors. I'm not saying pastors weren't involved. We talked extensively about the Black church being present in the movement, right? But it wasn't foreground. Now I see it feels different. It feels like folks are moving differently. And the Black church is foregrounded. Black pastors are foregrounded, and not in a begrudging way, but almost in a way of, we're going back to our roots.
Yes.
This is how we've gotten over and gotten through in the past. And we are going back to this.
It reminds me about a couple of weeks ago from the time that we're recording this, on our front page of our local newspaper was Rev HK Matthews. And Rev HK Matthews is a Pensacola legend, 97 years old, one of the forerunners of civil rights, still living in the local community. And it was a feature of his life and what still keeps him going at 97. You know, and when you see somebody at 97 who's still giving words of wisdom and encouragement and challenge for the next generation, who was there at the rallies not that long ago when BLM was at its height, was there at the rallies, was with us, giving us advice, was encouraging us as we elected certain officials, was challenging us on what we should and should not do, and was not trying to take over, but was just sitting in the back. And then somebody would invariably point to him, because he was a forerunner. He was doing this long before any of us were born.
Yeah.
And he would just give a couple of words and say, but you have to continue on. But you have to keep going.
Spirit of justice.
You can't give up. And when you think about that, you're thinking like, no, I actually think the rebirth of the Black church's influence will come from the inspiration of those who have gone before. It's why your work is so important. It's why people have to buy these books. It's why people have to follow what you do. Because I think the models are coming back again.
That's what I'm saying. As
transition is happening, as people are moving, we are moving differently as the Black church. We are moving differently in Black faith spaces. And it doesn't mean we don't have issues. It doesn't mean there's not some things that we have. But I think now people are seeing the necessity and the urgency that we can't do it like we've always done it. And we can't do it even like how we did it 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It'll require a difference in this moment. So I'm glad to know that I'm not the only one that gave up Target, but I'm also glad that I'm not the only one that's thinking about moving differently in our space. I think it's required. I would love to hear how people are moving differently. How are you moving differently? Reach out to us. Leave comments on the YouTube video. And yes, we are on YouTube. If you're listening to this, we're on YouTube at Pastor Mike Podcast. Look us up. And as always, you can support the work that we do by going to patreon.com/passthemic to continue the work that we are doing. That's one way to move differently. Just give us $1 per episode. That's it. All we asking for. At least $1 per episode, a few dollars per month, just the cost of your coffee order. And it would go a long way to preserving this content here at Pass the Mic. Well, as always, Jemar, it's been fun. Yeah. We got to move now. And we're going to keep talking about what it means to move differently. And we'll see you soon on the next Pass the Mic.